Hi, everybody, and thanks for welcoming me today. When I was invited to talk at EiG this year, and this is my first time, the guys told me that I would have to discuss about leaders with a difference. And I said to myself, leaders, easy, I see. Obviously, everyone likes to see himself or herself as a leader. But what do they mean by with a difference? Do they consider that at BetClic Everest Group we are so different because maybe in this man's gaming world, BetClic Everest Group is headed by a woman? Or because this woman is French? And quickly I thought, no, that can't be. The guys might think this is a weakness, being French and being a woman, but definitely not such a difference. And seriously, yes, I think they are right. We are different at BetClic Everest Group. And if I had to describe it, I would say that we are different because we became, these recent years, a master of the art of aria. Aria, not like in the opera, but aria like in adaptation, regulation, innovation, and anticipation. Big topics, but I'll be quick. As some of you may have read in the press, after some difficult time, BetClic Everest Group is now back to profitability and growth. And I could have found a lot of reasons and explanation about what we did, how we did it, and why we succeeded. But I believe that the main reason to explain this turnaround is that at BetClic we have learned and succeeded in adapting. When I joined BetClic a few years ago, the company was literally booming, like many others at that time, to be fair, and having its business on a pure .com market. And we are not really questioning this growth. We're happy with the situation. We felt we were kings, and only sky was the limit. And suddenly, not so suddenly, to be honest, our world changed. 2000 came with the opening of the French market, and all of a sudden, nearly half of our French revenues disappeared into taxation, and we had to face very different market conditions and constraints. And all what we were thinking about these new market conditions proved to be wrong. We were expecting billions, or maybe millions, of new customers, and we just saw a gentle increase in sport, not to speak about poker. We're thinking that the regulation would change and improve after 18 months, the famous rendezvous clause, and it just didn't happen. And we could have complained, we could have struggled, we could have just waited for the situation to naturally improve. And to be honest, we did a little bit of all that. But eventually, we remembered our Darwin lessons and decided that the sooner we would adapt, the better it would be for us. Because indeed, and this is probably the biggest learning from this period, no matter how smart, innovative, clever, knowledgeable about your market, no matter what you can do or you believe you will be able to do in innovation, product, if you first don't consider the world you live in, and if you are not ready to face the mere realities that you have to face today, you're just dead. And that is not as easy as it sounds. At BetClic Everest Group, at that time, most of us were thinking that the market conditions would change. We're thinking that we were right, and sooner or later, they would realize that they were wrong and that they would change the market conditions. And yes, sometimes you can beat your market, and you can create your own world. But it is when you are a genius, and if you are a genius. And at BetClic Everest Group, we are not genius. And we know that in nature, and according to the evolution theory, most of the time, nature wins, and not all species survive if they don't adapt. And for us, mostly adaptation was about regulation. And yes, we believe in regulation. First, because do we really have the choice? As they say, if you can't beat them, join them. And looking around, it seems that all markets, at least European, but Europe is our biggest market for the time being, all markets are getting regulated sooner or later. And true, I would lie if I'd say that I'm happy with the way countries regulate. And I would definitely not admit that I'm very pleased with all the aspects of the French regulation, just to mention it. But there are serious reasons why I like regulation. Regulation gives you long-term visibility. Once you know the conditions you are operating under, then and only then you can build a long-term strategy for your company, and you have a future. Regulation gives you stability, because once a market is regulated, you don't run the risk to see it close from one morning to the other, and some of your revenues disappearing or being jeopardized. Regulation gives you value. Value to your company, value to your shareholders, but also value to your customers because they are playing in a safer environment, and value to the states because they can control better the industry and get the taxes. We'll be talking about the taxes. And regulation gives you also respectability. And let's face it, we need respectability in this industry if we want to improve and grow further, and if we want to attract new talents from the outside. We are not crooks, we are not smugglers. We do normal business, we do entertainment, and if we claim we do a normal business, why should we oppose regulation? Normal business are all regulated one way or another. But probably even more important to me, regulation forces you to be better. And that was probably the most unexpected but important learning for us at BetClic Everest Group. With regulation, either you improve or you die. And obviously, we're not dead. And when I talk regulation, of course, I talk about a regulation that is decent and fair, aimed at controlling the market but not killing it. And the most difficult situation that we can face for our industry is intermediary situation where countries said they will regulate but doesn't really, and in the meantime they enforce weird measures, not to talk about what I would call absurd regulation that are not at all EC compliant. But I want to believe that this kind of situation are due because our industry is young and it's probably not the easier to regulate. But sooner or later, it will happen. And I see no reason why an harmonized and decent regulation couldn't apply in Europe. Because I'm sure that all countries can and will realize that there is no downside in regulation. Again, decent regulation that are open to private operators and doesn't kill the market. But there is no downside. You control the situation, as seen already in some regulated countries like Italy. There is no downside for state monopolies or land-based casino that can see still the same kind of revenues, whether it is open to private online operators or not. And of course, in bring taxes. And sorry to say, but you can live with taxes. As said, at BetClic Everest Group, we are now living with more than 50% of our revenues that are regulated and taxed. And we are profitable. At this stage, don't misunderstand me, I'm not calling for more taxes, and to a certain level, taxes are preventing a market to grow, and that is not just good for the industry. I do believe that the level of taxation has to stay decent and fair so that it open to legal operators and close the door definitely to illegal business. But I have to admit, a bit provocatively maybe, that I'm not sure that we would, sorry, next time I'll do it in French. And so I have to admit that I'm not sure we would have been able to do so good at BetClic without regulation. Of course, we had to review our cost structure because of the taxes. But by just cutting costs, we would be nowhere. And regulation is good because it forces us to think about the way we are doing a business and to become smarter, more accurate with our investments, more efficient, and not to be just satisfied with doing business as usual, but think about every euro that we are investing in marketing or in IT. And talking about investing, there I go to innovation. During this period, when you have to adapt, and no matter what it takes to adapt, you can't and you won't compromise with innovation. Because simply, innovation is also a big part of adaptation. And for me, adaptation is the word for today and for this speech. And for us at BetClic, innovating was not innovating for the sake of innovation, but it was also about adapting to new market conditions, but also adapting to our customer needs, and be even more accurate about what our customers are requesting. We are living in a world that is changing quickly. Technological progress has never been so quick, again, this is obvious, and our customers have so many choices, so many solicitations, and so little time that we need to be very accurate if you don't want to lose them in translation. And when I talk about the necessity of innovation, this is obviously about technology, but it's wider than that. It's more an attitude and a mindset. You have to adapt, you have to innovate, but you want to innovate because you want to be different. And there we go with the difference. And this is, again, part of the evolution path, if you still allow me to talk about my theory about the evolution. In nature, if you want to attract the female, you need to have the brightest colors. In gaming, having a bit of differentiation in product and on your side, attract the customers that are, I'm sorry, mostly male for the time being. I will not go into much details because I believe that there is a lot of conference about innovation during this EiG event, and I'm sure that you will take further about innovation. But again, for me, innovation is adapting to your world and adapting to your customer needs. I wouldn't discard here the importance of a broad marketing acquisition because we are a young industry all in all, and we still need to buy market share and attract new customers. But I believe that specifically on the web, probably not on the mobile, but on the web, we are very far behind other e-commerce industries. And we need to be more customer-centric to target our customers. And this will make our future success. And same for product. Differentiation and adaptation to customers' needs are even more important than having the best-in-class technology tools. Because again, it's not about being a genius. If you want to be a genius, you're Steve Jobs and you create Apple. It's about targeting your customers. It's about adapting to the world you live with. And for instance, at BetClic Everest Group, we now see that more than about 50% of our customers, sport customers, are now coming to us through mobile. And most of them have never played on the web. So no wonder that now we are focusing our investment, focusing innovation, resourcing on money on mobile. But we know that we also need to stay aware of the future and the future needs of our customer. And then I go with the last letter, which is the A for anticipation. And of course, anticipation. Everyone wants to anticipate and to be the first so as to be able to win the race. But as weird as it sounds, for me, anticipation should come last. Anticipation should come only when you have built on solid grounds. Anticipation should come only when you know about your market today and we have built on, yes, where you have built on the present. Anticipation is obviously about the future, i.e. the uncertainties. So anticipation should come only when you are ready to accept you can be wrong. So if I had only one thing to nail down to about anticipation, I would say that, yes, you need to anticipate. And do anticipate, but anticipate only if you are ready to adapt to the reality, even if this is not the reality you would dream about. Anticipate, but only if you are ready for regulation, whether you like it or not. Anticipate as far as you can on innovation, but be careful to stay close to your customer needs. And do anticipate even more if you are French and if you are a woman. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabelle. We appreciate it. We're going to save questions to the end of this particular panel, but if you would join me in welcoming our next speaker, Mikael Pawlo. Mikael, again, as the CEO of Mr. Green Holding Companies, is going to have a unique presentation we talked a little bit about this morning at another panel, and that's about disruptive gaming and other issues. But please welcome Mikael. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, yes, I'm Mikael, and thank you, Congressman. He's not paying attention. For the brilliant introduction regarding my opera past. Unfortunately, the only thing I inherited from this great grandfather, the opera singer, is sort of the belly. So I can't sing, so don't ask me to do that. I'm the CEO of Mr. Green & Company, and I'm just going to explain this because I've never done this in public before. This is the holding company owning the internet casino MrGreen.com, which is based in Malta. I used to head up that operation for many years, but now we have a new brilliant CEO heading up the operations in Malta called Marcus Nyland. So that's about it. This is me on Twitter. Please follow me and you'll get some interesting discounts to play on Mr. Green. So let's start with the bad news. I have some very bad news for you today. The bad news is that in the long run, we're all dead. You're all going to die in this room. I hope it doesn't come to as a complete shocker, but I have some good news as well. And the good news is, in that run, you decided to go for the best industry in the world. So you're going to have a lot of fun in the time you have left. And of course, we want to have fun, but we also, as an industry, have some challenges on the way to death. Some of us might actually die a bit sooner than the rest of us. And the reason for this, I would say, one of the reasons might be what I would like to describe as disruptive innovations. Why would we talk about disruptive innovations on a conference where everyone is so innovative? Well, if we first try to define what this is, this I got from Wikipedia, I think. A disruptive innovation is an innovation that helps create a new market and new value network, and eventually goes on to disrupt an existing market and value network. One word missing. You would think that a company that doesn't sort of constantly innovate, it will be like on a mudslide. So it's climbing this hill or a mountain. It's constantly climbing it, and if it stops, it will instantly fall down. And that's called the mudslide theory of innovation. This has turned out to be very far from the truth. It's not like companies are uninterested in innovation. Most companies, they understand that they need to innovate all the time. The problem is something else. What do you think? What might the problem be? I hope that the guys from Mr. Green, I can spot a few here in the audience at least, have a theory. No? No one? Of course I can't hear you, but so anyway, unfortunately I can't hear you. But the problem is that you don't have the resources, you don't have the time, you don't have the people, etc., etc., etc. So you might understand that something big is going on, but you can't really focus on it. You don't know how to sort of break up your current regime. You're not profitable enough, and actually the innovation as such will not be profitable enough soon enough. So let's say that you come up with this completely new concept back in 1996, that, oh, this internet seems like a very, very cool thing, and you're a land-based casino, and you say, well, perhaps we should go online. Well, most didn't, as you know. And it might have been a bit too soon to go online in 1996 as well for a land-based casino. But why aren't they online now? I mean, back in 1996, perhaps some of you didn't even surf the net back then. So fair enough. But why haven't the land-based casinos gone online already, all of them? Why are we able to be here at all? I mean, there were huge companies. Well, I would say that the Harvard Business School professor, Clayton Christensen, he has proven that the problem is this. It's the lack of resources, the lack of focus, etc. You're not really able to adapt to the new conditions due to the fact that your current business environment doesn't really provide for it. So, would you say that a startup has this problem? Well, I would say it does not. The reason is, of course, that it has zero luggage. It doesn't have a current operation or a current income that it needs to constantly defend and continue to build on. It can just start from scratch. So the startups are sort of the danger here in the ecosystem. We don't know who will succeed, but we know that some of them will succeed. And then they might create a new value network and kill us all. We will all be dinosaurs if there are new innovations that we cannot handle. Still the bad news. And you might say, okay, I can read this, I see there is a light bulb there, etc., but what does it all mean? Does it have any real impact? Well, you could ask Kodak, a company you might have heard of. They used to do physical photographs. Then there was this innovation that they actually came up with themselves, digital photography, and they were not able to adapt. If you're a postal mail company, you might have some trouble to cope with email. If you back 100 years ago, if you run a sail ship company transporting stuff, you wouldn't be too happy about the steamboat and the steam engine. And of course, this is a very good example. I didn't look this up in an encyclopedia. I got it from Wikipedia. So that market is also dead. So what's going on then? I mean, you heard all this, and he waves a lot with his arms, etc., but does it mean anything? Soon he will take off if he continues like this. Well, I would say for all of us, this is a very big challenge now, that mobile internet usage will overtake desktop internet. It's not a theory, it's happening. So we need to be very, very well prepared for this. And also, I would say this is not like a huge change, but player behavior will, to some extent, change due to this new mobile scenario. So, and I use mobile in the broadest sense, both tablets and smartphones. So we'll really start to go for this second screen, and I guess you've all seen this behavior in your own casinos, that people play more in the evenings, but now it's really, really starting to take off. The good news, some good news today at least, is that games are still hot on smartphones and tablets. The only problem with this 50% playing games on smartphones and 58% on tablets, the only problem with those figures is, of course, that too few of those 58% are playing casino games, because there's simply not enough casino games for these platforms. So there is a shift in technology, and this shift is quite brutal. These figures come from a small startup that's been around for a while now called Google. And they've done some very intense study of this behavior, of course, and they noticed that 74% of mobile users will only wait for 5 seconds or less for a mobile page to load. Anyone got any idea what happens if it takes longer? They leave. So that's the problem. And the interesting thing is, if you look at the top companies in this room, you might ask, which are those? But no names. Let's just say that they're top gaming companies. Those websites take more than 5 seconds to load. And the good news is there is room for improvement. On a general level, 57% of mobile users have problems accessing a website. This is, of course, not acceptable at all. We need to do something about this. And why would I give you this advice? I mean, I know this, we can use it in our company, etc. Well, I think it's important for the entire industry to be on this train. Another thing that's quite interesting is that mobile users are more likely to buy from a mobile-friendly site. I mean, it's quite evident, of course. If the website is made for mobile, you will more likely buy from it. So, what's next? I would say stay agile. Always, always try to innovate, but don't regard it as sort of, yeah, we do some small innovations here. Try to always do things regarding these giant leaps that are happening all around the world, and will continue to happen. Now it's mobile, it's smartphones, it's the tablets, etc. But tomorrow it might be something else. Now we need to do this. A website, you used to be able to do a website, make a huge investment, and then you were done. That doesn't hold true anymore. You need to constantly innovate it. And I would say that action speaks louder than words. It's easy to be here and just say, well, we need to do it. But you can say, well, I don't know, that guy with his arms, he said that we should do some innovation. So yeah, we do some innovation. We have this guy, this business developer who's innovating. Well, that's probably not good enough. And then we might not see each other in 5 years. We'll see. Another thing that I think is quite important, that used to be sort of the core of this industry, is to keep dreaming. Let's have some fluffy, big visions. Let's try to really, really mobilize our joint power in innovating something new. Slot machines, extremely interesting, of course, but has it happened that much with them the last 100 years? Maybe not. The sportsbook on mobile is very interesting because there you have actually done some innovation. We don't offer sportsbook, but I think it's very interesting to see how the live betting is now really, really the major thing of sports booking. So that's very good. And another thing, you're never done. You need to always do this. And if you do, we'll see each other here in 5 years, because we might die in the long run. Unfortunately, that still holds true, but we're not dead just yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikael. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and a final thing. In this magazine, you can find an interesting article on mobile as well. That's great. That you all get.
Thank you. We'd now like to open up for about 10 minutes of questions and answers. Is there anyone that has a question in the audience? Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a question about slots and mobile. You talk about mobile being the next, the big thing, well, the next big thing. But from what everyone's seeing so far, sports betting has clearly gone mobile, both tablet and mobile. In-running has led that. And gaming seems to be struggling along and not seeing the growth that sports betting is getting on there. Do you have any thoughts why? Do you agree with that? Do you have any thoughts why that is?
Well, I'm not sure if... Did everyone hear the question, by the way? Yeah, so why is slots trailing behind whilst the sportsbook really had made a mobile shift? Am I understanding the question correctly? Yeah. So I would say that that's probably not entirely true. I think there are several other reasons why the mobile casinos have been a bit slow in the start. The sportsbooks have been running mobile operations for quite some time. But the casinos have more or less just started. And the reason is, of course, the lack of supply of games. That has changed the last 12 months, but prior to that, it was very hard to find games in HTML5, for example. So I think that might be an explanation, but it will definitely work on mobile, in my opinion.
Any other questions? Yes, front row.
Hello, a question for Isabelle. You said clearly that the way for the future for you is the regulation. And you said very clearly that the key success factor in a regulated market are not only a regulated market, but are innovation, anticipation, and so on. What do you think your company should change in terms of mindset and model from .com structure to .country structure in terms of resources, tech, whatever, in order to match what you said before?
Well, again, to be quite fair, regulation first. When you move from a .com model to a .country model, the very first day, it means a drop in your profitability. This is as simple as that. But as said, this is why I believe that the very first thing you have to do is to question the way you are doing business, to question your marketing strategy. And at BetClic, for instance, we saw that in Italy, for instance, but also in France, by just questioning the marketing or marketing strategy, by maybe negotiating a little bit differently with our provider, also because the market was changing, and not only we had to adapt, but our partners had to adapt as well, we're able to be most efficient at it. Of course, we had also to change our technology, because being on a .com country comes with a lot of constraints, especially in France. You have a lot of IT and customer relationship constraints that you have to take into account. So it takes that first. You need to rethink your technology, you need to rethink your back office, you need to rethink your website, and two, at the very beginning, it needs some kind of investment on innovation. But again, if you think about how to be more efficient, you suddenly realize that, well, by just building on a new technology, for instance, it allows you to be better and more efficient with less money.
Do you have a follow-up question?
You said clearly about marketing, whatever, but when you say technology, you said correctly the point. So innovation is product. So if your structure is centralized structure, are you able to match the anticipation that you need in technology and innovation if you don't have a local structure? That's my biggest question. I mean, I know very well how the multinational company, they do that. They centralize the business, and now they are just people on the ground, most of all marketing people, but not tech people that can give you the asset in terms of regulation, anticipation for compliance, in order to anticipate the product. So this is my biggest question mark that I think is not easy to answer, of course, but that's the point for me. I don't know if I was clear or not.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, but with the air conditioning, I'm not sure I completely got your question. But if you're talking about localizing or...
Yes. My question is not, is more, are you sure that is more important, localization is more important than centralization in this kind of situation when you need to innovate your product or whatever? So.
When it comes to that country, there are two ways of looking at it, and probably you need a mix of a bit of it too. You need to localize. And you need to adapt to a certain conditions. But you need also to think, because by localizing and doing different websites on different teams and different all what you can see, of course, it would be difficult to be efficient. So at the same time, you need to define exactly what you want or you have to localize, and what you can still centralize and organize. And again, there are some technological constraints that are very specific to a .com country, but you can build on a centralized back office. You can find ways to redefine your architecture and make sure that by having legal gateway and having a modular architecture, you can build localized website on a common platform. I would say same for marketing. You definitely need to have localized team that know very well the market, because it will allow you to be more customer-centric, know exactly the needs of your customers, specifically in this country. At the same time, I would say that the basics of retention, targeting, marketing are the same. So you want also to keep a little bit of centralization. And all the rest you can keep centralized.
We have time for one more question. Is there another question in the audience? I'd like to ask one question, Michael, about the disruptive piece. And I know you touched upon it for a moment, but from a startup perspective to a more established company, can you walk through that one more time, some of the differences?
Yes. So what are the differences between a startup company and a more established company? Well, I would say that the major difference is that change and innovation is in the DNA of the startup company. That's the major distinguisher between the two. And the problem is, of course, that the more established company need to find a piece of that DNA to be able to survive in the long run. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Sylvia said we can take a few more moments, so if there are any other questions, here's a great opportunity. Yes, right in the middle in the back.
Hi, James Harkin, Element Wave. The mobile stats in general, when you look across mobile, it's about 87% in app rather than mobile website. Are you guys seeing that in the gaming industry as well?
Definitely, we believe, but again, we may be wrong. This is about anticipation, but be ready to be wrong. Yes, we believe that mobile will become more important than the web. And in sport, of course, but I do agree with my colleague. We now see that it is increasing more and more at a slower step, but more and more for casino and poker, obviously. And we say poker more on tablets than the mobile, actually. So, and I do believe that it will become more important than the web, definitely.
And sorry, just a quick follow-up. And that's native mobile app versus mobile web as well? You're seeing that trend also?
I Well, this is very much a personal thinking because at BetClic Everest Group, we own our technology for sport, which is not the case for poker and obviously casino. For sport, I believe in native apps because the way people play, and especially in the live, you need native apps. Casino, obviously, HTML is sufficient. And the poker, we have a lot of discussion with our provider. And again, I may be wrong on this because this is very new, but I would say that for localized, regulated market, you probably need native apps, but for .com, HTML is sufficient. And probably the future of poker is more on tablets. And if you would need native, it would be on tablets.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all. And how about, do we have one more question in the back? If not, how about a round of applause for our panelists today? Appreciate it very much. Isabelle and Mikael, thank you.